This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Hi friends, I'm Carrie Jo, and this is Holy Chuckles Podcast. This is a space for honest faith, lived experiences, and shining a light in the places we've learned to hide. I'm not here to explain faith. I'm here to live it out loud. So take a breath and let's make room for what's real. Welcome back to Holy Chuckles Podcast. I'm glad you're here. Last episode, I talked about 1 Samuel chapter 2, verse 32. And this episode, I'm going to be talking about verse 33. In these past verses, I've mostly been talking about Eli, but I kind of want to switch over to the unnamed man when we're talking about verse 33. Unnamed man, aka I named him yesterday, Bob. So God asked Bob to get on his donkey. I don't know if God really said, Bob, get on your donkey. That's the picture that I have in my head. Whether Bob got on his donkey or Bob walked, either way, God gave Bob a message, a prophetic word to give to Eli. Let's talk about that first. First, God giving Bob the prophetic message. Could you just imagine Bob just sitting around, drinking his wine, drinking his beer, whatever it is, out of his little clay cup, and all of a sudden he hears, "Hey, Bob." Bob's like, "God? God? Is that you? Are you talking to me?" Silent for a minute. Bob just thinks to himself, it's the wine, it's the beer. And he goes about drinking some more. And then all of a sudden he hears, "Hey, Bob, Bob." And Bob's like, "I knew it. I knew you were talking to me, God. What's up? What's going on? How you been, God? What can I do for you? I've been waiting. I've been waiting for you to use me as your vessel. I've been waiting, God. What can I do for you?" Then God kind of checks in with Bob, like, "How's the wife? How's the kids?" You know, God, he already knows how the wife and the kids are. He knows how Bob is. But it's common courtesy. God's a loving God. He's going to open up conversation, not just, "I need you to do this for me, Bob." Him and Bob have a conversation. And then Bob's like, "All right, God, what's up? I feel like you came to me for a reason. What can I do for you? I've already said, let me be your vessel." God's like, "I know, Bob. That's why I came to you. I came to you because, one, I feel like I can give you this message and you're not going to freak out. Two, I feel like you're the man for this message. And three, ask and you shall receive. You asked to be my vessel, so I said, Bob's up, Bob's up. Let's call Bob." So that's what we're doing. Bob was like, "Is this going to be a long message, God? Do I need to get my papyrus and my reed pen? Or can I remember this?" And God's like, "Nah, you're probably going to want to write this down. It's kind of a lot, and I think after I tell you, you might be surprised and unsure of things. So I think you're going to want to go ahead and write this down." Again, this is how I'm thinking it's going. Because after reading these verses, I am feeling for Bob, the unnamed man. Bob gets his writing materials and he's like, "All right, God, I'm ready." And God tells him what to say. And even the things that I read before, like starting in verse 27, "Did I not clearly reveal myself?" And then he talks about what the promises God had made. Before I get to verse 33, let's talk about the ride over that Bob had to do after he had received this message from God. And he agreed to it. He said, "Yep, I'm your man. I'm your messenger. I'm taking it to Eli." He has to take it to a priest. God's man. He's delivering a message to one of God's COOs. That alone must have been frightening, intimidating. And he could have said no. He could have said no. He could have said, "God, I don't want to deliver that message to Eli. Thanks for knocking on my brain door, but no thank you. I don't want to do that. Go on to your next fella. I'm not the one." but call me again and maybe we'll try this vessel thing again. But he didn't. He wrote down the message and went on his way as God asked him. Can you imagine? I don't know if he had to travel a day, an hour. It doesn't matter. All the information that he received from God, and now he's got this short time or a lot of time to think about it. Could you imagine the stuff going through his head? I have scenarios running through my head all the time that I play out, and they're not messages from God. It's just me and my foolishness. I can just see him riding his donkey and him playing out how he's going to say these things. Like, hi, Eli, you don't know me, but God sent me. Or do I say it more forceful? Hey, Eli, you don't know me, but God sent me. Or am I going to be like, hey, Eli, I'm the unnamed man. God sent me. I have a message for you. Why don't we have a beer and talk about it? Like, were all these scenarios just playing in his head? Or did God talk him through it the whole way? Like, listen, unnamed man, aka Bob, I know this is frightening. I know this is overwhelming, but Eli's just a man. Yes, he's a priest. Yes, he's my COO of Israel. But honestly, he's just a man. And then another thought went through my head. When Bob got the message about everything that was going on, how did Bob not run out and tell the tea? Like, if Bob was married, how did he not go, Martha, Martha, I just had a conversation with God and you will never guess what's going on. I mean, yes, we see it. We've heard about what Eli's sons are doing, but Martha, God is upset. And Martha, God picked me to go give a message to Eli. And now Martha is running out to the well to go tell all her friends. Oh, God talked to Bob. God's not happy. The things that are going on are going to be fixed. And Bob's going to talk to him. My Bob, my Bob. God picked my Bob to go and talk to Eli. I know you're following this picture with me. Bob's on his way to Eli, thinking about all of this stuff. He gets there and he starts to give the message. And we've already talked about the other parts of the message. This message is where I was like, oh my goodness. I would not want to be Bob right now. I would not want to be Bob. NIV version, every one of you that I do not cut off from serving at my altar, I will spare, only to destroy your sight and sap your strength. And all your descendants will die in the prime of life. Could you imagine giving that message? Could you imagine the message before, I will cut short your strength? And then the next message, you will see distress. Now, God is saying, every one of you, I don't cut off from my altar. I will destroy your sight and sap your strength, and your descendants will die in the prime of life. But hold on, because I like the NIV Bible, and I know a lot of people will say that's not the true message, and that's great. Read whatever you want. Read whatever speaks to your heart, okay? I read it because the words make more sense to me. But for dramatic purposes, and I feel like this is where the King James really gives it to you. For dramatic purposes, back in that day, this is what Bob has to say to Eli. And the man of thine whom I shall cut off from mine altar shall be consume thine eyes and grieve thine heart, and all the increase of thine house shall die in the flower of their age. That is poetry. Like if there was a real housewives of Israel, this would be said. This would be said. So Bob gives the message. And I want to talk about Bob for a little bit. I want to talk about the unnamed man because we've talked about a lot of what these things mean with Eli and what's going on. But I want to talk about Bob because this man received this message from God and kind of, even if God didn't fill him in, because God doesn't have to fill anyone in on what's going on. God can just say, go give this message. And you can either obey or not obey. That's up to you. But Bob can fill in the blanks. He lives there. He lives in Israel. All of Israel have complained about what's going on with Eli's sons. They all see it. It says it right here in the word. They all see what's going on. They've brought it to Eli's attention, and Eli still has done nothing. He's talked to them. Eli's kind of chastised them in his weak way, but he didn't cut them off. He didn't say, you're out of here, right? Which is what he needed to do. So God gives Bob this message and says, I need you to go get on your donkey, ride down to Eli's house and give this to him. Give him this message. Thus saith the Lord. That's how Bob started this message. And can you imagine this walk, this ride that Bob was doing? The whole way there, what he must have been thinking. How many times did he want to turn around? How many times was he like, God, I appreciate the opportunity and I really want to serve, but I don't think this is for me. And I know I thought this. God wouldn't pick Bob if Bob wasn't ready. And yes, at any time, we can say we're ready. Do you know how many times I've told God, I'm ready to serve? I'm ready to be a vessel. How many times I have given my life over to God? I mean, I could probably win the I'm ready contest because I've done it throughout my whole life over and over again, but I was never really committed. I was never really ready. And so when I read this passage and how forward really it is when it says, and all your descendants will die in the prime of life. Whether it be he said it that way or he said, the increase of thine house shall die in the flower of their age. I mean, come on, the second one is so much better. But you're having to give a message that Eli, one, God's been trying to get a hold of you. Two, these are the words from God. And three, some of those words are your descendants are going to die at a young age. At that moment, when just that sentence is given to Bob and he's writing it down, the increase of thine house shall, and then gets to the word die. Do you think maybe Bob took a pause there for a minute and said, I don't know if I'm your man to give this message. I don't know if I want to give this message. I don't know if I can give this message. How many times in our life has God given us a message and we didn't follow through with it? And the message was just for us. We didn't have to go give it to someone else. The message was just for us. And we still didn't follow through with it. How much strength did this one man have to write down this message, to make his way over to someone's house, the house of God, a priest's house, and then say, you don't know me, but I need to give you this message. And this message is from God. And then he starts it out by saying, thus saith the Lord. And then he has to go through this whole message and get to this one part that says your descendants are going to die when they're young and not even bat an eye, Not even falter. Just say it, and say it with conviction because you're saying it from the Lord. How much strength must that take? And if I take this back to the verses before, Bob honored what God entrusted with him, which was a message to Eli. Bob honored that, even though it was scary, even though he might have questioned, did this really happen? Did I hear correctly? Am I doing the right thing? He did it. He went over to Eli's house and he said, "Thus saith the Lord." And Eli could have looked at him cross-eyed and said, "You're crazy, Bob. God wouldn't speak to you, and God wouldn't give you this message. So go about your way. I'm not even going to listen to it." But Bob must have carried himself with the authority that God gave him to give this message to one of God's priests, his COO of Israel. That took strength. That was obedience. And for me, that's kind of where I've been in some of my life, just obeying, even though it doesn't make sense to me. This is kind of my unnamed man era, my Bob era. And in a world where we have so many distractions, because see, Bob didn't have a lot of distractions. They didn't have tablets, computers, Wi-Fi, cell phones. It was easier to hear God during those times. We have so many distractions. So many. Everywhere we turn around, there's a distraction, whether it's a person, whether it is a device, whether it's work. There's just so many distractions. And so it's harder for us to hear God, especially when it's just a whisper. But when you're in alignment with yourself and with God, it's a little easier because the distractions are, yes, always there, but you start to find your way away from them. I'm not saying that I don't have a cell phone. Of course I do, but I don't have social media on my cell phone. It's not that I don't get on social media, but I have to make it a point to do so. I have to go to a computer. I have to actually log on and sit there at my desk. When I am out and about, I don't have social media on my phone, so I'm mindlessly scrolling because I realized it keeps me distracted from what I need to be connected to, which is myself and God. TV is one of my favorite pastimes. I love it. And yes, I love to watch The Housewives. I love any type of reality show. And I like to watch movies. And TV is a great entertainment for me. But I don't watch it as much as I used to because, yes, it is a distraction. I think the things that Bob has shown me is I want to continue living my life with less distractions and more communication with God, more alignment with God, more alignment with myself. Because look what God called Bob to do. And I wonder if Bob even thought he had the strength in him to do it. And then look what Bob was able to accomplish because he said, "God picked me to do this." And how many times have we missed out on an opportunity that God chose for us? Not that we chose, an opportunity that God chose for us because we couldn't hear God saying, "I chose you. I gave you this authority. I chose you." How many times, because of distractions, have we missed out on the opportunities that God has had for us? I know me. I know I've had to miss out on a lot of great opportunities because one, I thought I knew better. Two, I had to stay in control. Three, I was in survival mode. And four, I let the distractions rule my life because I was too scared to say God chose me. Maybe not even scared. I didn't believe God chose me. Why would God choose me? But God has a plan for each and every one of us that is greater than we could ever imagine. But we live in our knowing. We live in what we can control. But what if we decided to live like Bob did and just say, all right, God, you got a message for me. I'm going to take it to Eli. It's going to be scary. It's going to be unknown how Eli is going to react. His boys could attack me. They've been acting crazy anyway. Anything could happen along the way. And when I give this message, anything could happen. But I trust in the authority that you gave me. And I trust that I heard you correctly because I'm in alignment with you. And so I'm going to go deliver this message. I'm going to do what you've called me to do. How many of us are not doing what we've been called to do? I thought it was crazy when God gave me the message about this podcast. I thought it was crazy when I was directed to quit my job. I thought it was crazy when I heard David, the homeless man, near my apartment screaming outside, and I was directed to go and help him. I thought all these things were crazy, but God has carried me through every single one of them. That day that I helped the homeless guy, David, and then I went around and helped the other homeless people. God provided all day long, even when I thought I didn't have anything to give them. God provided all day long. When I quit my job, I didn't have savings. And I quit my job in the middle of 2025. We're now in March of 2026, and God has provided. My rent has been paid. My bills have been paid. I had no savings, but every single month, God has provided. Not because there's something special about me, but because I obeyed. I have been in survival mode for so long that I was at my very end. When I cut people out of my life, when I couldn't perform at work, when I couldn't function at home, in my relationship, just in my home in general, God said, this is enough. Your survival mode ends here. You cannot just keep surviving. God needed me to remove everything from my life so I could heal, so I could grieve, so I could get through my traumas and heal my nervous system, so I could just function. Forget the podcast, forget work, forget relationships. I needed to heal so I could just function. And what was so beautiful about God calling me to do these things is God knows me. And God said, we got to give Carrie Jo something to do while she's healing. Because if she just has to sit around and heal, that's not going to work for her. And that's why this podcast came about. I needed to document my growing. I needed something to do. I needed someone to talk to because I work through things better when I talk it out. So God gave me an idea to help me through this healing because God knows every single one of us inside and out. And God knows what we need in the time that we need it. And without this podcast, I would have driven my own self nuts by talking to myself continuously. I already knew that, but I needed something to focus on. God already knew I didn't like to journal. I do it sometimes, but it's not my most favorite thing. And a lot of people are able to go back and see their growth in their journal. God knew I wasn't going to do that. And so God gave me something that would allow me to go back and say, look how much you've grown. So yes, God said to me, you're going to be a living testimony. but we're all living testimonies. Every single one of us. Some of us just live it out loud more than others. I think what the unnamed man really taught me is no matter what message God gives you, and no matter who you have to take it to, it's the obeying, it's the knowing that whatever God gives you to do, no matter how hard it is, no matter how unreachable it may seem, that God will never leave your side and God will be there to hold you through every single part of it. Just like God was there to hold Bob during the time God gave Bob the message, during the time that Bob was walking or riding the donkey to Eli's house and maybe had a lot of questions and a lot of thoughts. God was there during the time that Bob gave that message to Eli because that had to be difficult. Every single step of the way, no matter how scary it got, no matter how many questions the unnamed man had, no matter how many doubts he might have had, God was there the whole way through because God will never give us more than we can handle, and God will always be by our side. I know for me, after reading this and thinking about the unnamed man, aka Bob, that going forward, I'm going to make sure that I continue to be aligned with myself and with God because I never want to miss an opportunity, whatever it may be, whether it be healing, helping a homeless gentleman named David, starting a podcast, starting a new job, moving to a different area. I never want to miss an opportunity that God has designed for me.